Well, it's great to be here. I just love the enthusiasm and energy and everything that's coming off you folks. I find it a real privilege to be able to stand up and hopefully to bring you something of value. So this is about upgrading your lyrics, and we have an hour and a quarter, is that right? Okay, hour and a quarter. And I'm sure it's not entirely comprehensive, but at least hopefully it'll get you thinking in some good directions. And I'm sure there's loads I've missed out. But upgrading your lyrics. So let's have frame one, shall we? Why upgrade? You've written a song, you feel it's a good one, your mother agrees, and you can't wait to use it. But is it a great song, or even a good one? The qualitative difference between good and great can sometimes seem quite small. It's true, actually. I often look at a song that's suddenly become really popular. I think, why is this, become particularly popular? And sometimes it takes a while to actually see why that is. Sometimes you never work it out, but there's not always a massive difference between good and great. So why not put in the extra work to give it the best chance of tipping over into the greatness category? And even if it turns out to fall short of greatness, you have probably increased its usefulness and longevity. Many years ago, I remember being part of a team that compiled a songbook, a contemporary Christian songbook. And the penalty of that, the upshot is you get your name on the cover. It looks great, compiled by. But the downside is you get locked into a room for about 3 days or something, twice, with a bunch of other folks, and you just have to listen to hundreds and hundreds of songs and make a decision on them. I hate making decisions at the best of times, But one of the things that we kept commenting on was, if only the writer would put a bit more work into this, it would be worth putting in the songbook, Often we only think so far as, I've written a song, I think it's done, I've run out of energy anyway, so here it is, we're going to hopefully use it next Sunday. But what if it's got the potential of going wider? Other people then are going to look at that song and they're going to examine it quite more carefully maybe than you do as to, its pluses and minuses. And songs can easily be just discarded like that, just because of one flaw. Now, I'm a bit extreme in this, that whenever a new song appears in my church, I can't help myself. I stand there, I'm not joining in yet, okay? Because I want to know what you want me to sing, Is that really, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, fine, I'll join in. Now, I'm not saying that I opt out if I don't like it. Of course, I sing along and, because I'm part of church and community, but there is a reservation there because I think, you want me to sing that, and I can't quite go along with that. But I'm an extreme version, but there are people like me out there. So think of, would Graham Kendrick let this through? And no, don't think like that. It could be incredibly depressing. But then again, you can be blind to your own stuff sometimes, writing my own stuff. And this is why I often play to my wife. She's a little bit reluctant. She says, I don't know about music and whatever. And anyway, I've got this or that to do. I say, come on. And reluctantly, she comes and I play her the song. And she nails it, and she might not know how to quite explain it, but she's, look, I'm just the worshipper in the service, and you want me to sing this is my reaction to it, and she spots things that I haven't spotted, because I've got a bit too clever or something like that. So upgrade, how do you do that? So don't just write a song, take us on a journey of the imagination, okay? Now actually, if you listen to most successful songs, they do that exactly. They are triggering your imagination. They are taking you to another place. People don't listen to songs to stay just in the same place. People listen to songs to take them on a journey into another world, someone else's world, or something they haven't experienced before. How do you trigger the imagination? So imagination works faster than logic. You throw out something that triggers the imagination, you're there instantly. Doesn't need explaining. So here's a few tools to trigger the imagination. A few of the many available. Create imagery. Okay? Write a story on the listener's imagination. And probably there's a lot more in there already yourself. The best imagery is already inside yourself, if you can just get it out. You know, what comes to mind when you think of this or that? What is the function of imagery? Here's a definition, I borrow from somewhere, is to generate a vibrant and graphic presentation of a scene that appeals to as many of the reader's senses as possible. It aids the reader's imagination to envisage the characters and scenes clearly. Okay? Now, obviously, worship songs, you're in quite a tight box. So it's quite a challenge to do that. If you're just a singer-songwriter, hey, you can do whatever you like that works. You know, if you're asking a whole crowd of people to sing it together and to agree on it as a accurate representation of the historic Christian faith, then that's a whole nother matter. Nevertheless, it's quite possible to do. One of the songs I think that does it well, I think it's a large key to its success, we were singing it this morning. I cast my mind to Calvary. What's happening immediately? Okay, Calvary. I'm going with you, Mr. Writer. Where Jesus, I'm in the wrong key. I'm in a Chris Tomlin key, sorry. Let's get a bit down to my key. Where Jesus bled and died. I've lost the tune, that to me. I know what the key, we'll just try A, shall we? I cast my mind, sing with me, to Calvary, where Jesus went for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that blessed. You're there, aren't you? It's because it's been very simply described. And you could say, oh, that's very simply described, almost too simply. And in a way, worship songs are like that. It needs to be, a large part of it needs to be very familiar. Okay? Because you're asking people to join in. But then you've got to have something fresh. And I think one of the fresh things in that song is... then on, was it the? I cannot sing these songs unless I've got a tune going. I can't remember the words. There's that line about they laid him down in Joseph's tomb. That's different, isn't it? Oh, fantastic! His body bound and drenched in tears. I love that because I haven't seen that before in a worship song. Yes, thank you. They laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by a heavy stone. It's back to the story I was talking about this morning, wasn't I? It is triggering, and most people that sing the song will know the story, will have read the scriptures, particularly every Easter, and it just takes you there, but in a fresh way. I'd never thought of his body drenched in tears, but the people were weeping over him. The women of Jerusalem, even on the way to the cross, they're weeping. His body was drenched in tears. Joseph's tomb. It takes you a time and a place, real events which happened in history, and that's powerful. And then, of course, it goes on. Anyway, it's just a little example of creating images in people's minds. If I say fire, what do you think of? Fire. You think it's hot in here? It is. No, words create images. Anyway, so. Now I'm going to use one ancient song because this song has survived more than 300 years, and it's still an incredibly popular song, and it's Okay, I can't remember the first line now. When I survey the wondrous cross. Okay, so let's take that second verse. Third verse, whichever one it is. See from his head, his hands, his feet. Let's read it together. See from his head, his hands, his feet. Sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? It's deceptively simple. I mean, that whole song is only a few short stanzas, isn't it? But it's like a massive movie when you sing it with a good tune. So how's he doing it? How is he doing it? And that's what we're going to look at. Isaac Watts, how's he doing it? So, tools to trigger the imagination. And the first of them are nouns. Forgive me if this is obvious stuff, but sometimes we don't think about the obvious. Nouns, evoking images of objects, colors, names, places. Okay, we just saw that. And familiar things. You say the word, the person is imagining the thing. Okay? Adjectives, shade or contrast meaning for extra definition. Verbs, doing action, movement, something is happening. Now, that's an interesting thing. When you realize where a lot of the energy comes in lyrics, it really helps you edit and improve. And a lot of it comes from verbs, because something is happening, you know? They laid him down in Joseph's tomb. It's not just the laid down in the tomb, laid down in Joseph's tomb. That's an adjective, but the laid him down, that's your verb. Next one. Story, narrative development. The basis of most communicative art, whether it's film or poetry or story, a play, it's tension and release. So next time you go to see a play or you see a movie, just keep those words in mind, tension, release. And you'll notice that the writer, the author, filmmaker, whatever, is creating tension and then releasing it. Creating tension and then releasing it. And that dynamic works as well in songs as much as anything else. But the element of narrative development, the unfolding of a story, is in so many songs, and many famous and enduring songs tell a little cameo story. And as I was saying this morning, if you were here, we have the greatest story in the world. So why aren't we telling this dramatic story as much as we could do? And it's not just the story. You know, there's loads of songs about the cross and the resurrection, aren't there? But there was more to Jesus' life than that, wasn't there? There's so many amazing stories that you can reference or draw inspiration from, where there's an unfolding. One of the, and obviously the more robust, the larger the lyric is, the more that needs to be the case. And it doesn't have to be a kind of a story in the sense of, you know, this fisherman was walking down by the sea and met Jesus and so on. But it's the flow, the journey. I remember in the song Joel mentioned this morning, Meekness and Majesty, and I haven't got that lined up, but if you're really quick, it will really help me. Amazing. We take things for granted these days, don't we? Say, I'd like this lyric, please. Oh my goodness. You're a star. This is incredible. Okay. So, meeks and majesty, manhood and deity in perfect harmony, the man who is God. Keep scrolling through. Lord of eternity dwells in humanity, kneels in humility, washes our feet. So, we know that's taken us into an actual event, but some washing feet, something which actually happened. Oh, what a mystery, meeks and majesty, bow down and worship, for this is your God. Verse 2, Father's pure radiance, perfect in innocence, yet learns obedience to death on a cross, suffering to give us life, conquering through sacrifice, and as they crucify, praise, Father, forgive. So you've got a sort of mixture of describing what he did, but then an actual in the scene, something actually in the scene. Give us the next verse, but don't give me the next bit yet. Wisdom unsearchable, God the invisible, love indestructible, in frailty appears. Now I'm writing this song, and I think, how do I bring this to an end? How do I bring this to a conclusion, to a satisfying end in terms of a narrative development? Because it's not quite a story like, and then this happened, and then that happened. Although in a big sense it is. And it took me a long time. I just knew that I somehow had to complete this journey. And then the obvious struck me, because we'd started about Christ's meekness and majesty, manhood and deity, and his God coming down to earth, the incarnation. So God has come down to the earth, and then he does this and he does that. Give me the last stanza. Lord of infinity, stooping so tenderly, lifts our humanity to the heights of his throne. Boy, I shouted a few hallelujahs when I came up with that thing. I thought, yes, I've missed, it's obvious. Maybe to someone else it would have been totally obvious, and they'd be sitting there thinking, when's this boy going to get it? But it suddenly completed the sweep from heaven. He comes to earth. He doesn't just go back to heaven. He lifts our humanity in several different ways. He takes his humanity, his incarnate humanity, back to heaven's throne. There is a man in heaven in a resurrection body. He didn't go back to being, the Son of God, not incarnate anymore. But he lifts our humanity. He lifts us with him. He takes a human body back, and then he takes us back with him. And that's one of those things which you might not, as you sing the song, you might not know, why is this working? But that's one reason why it does work, because it completes the journey. I'm going to give you one other quick thing. I'm slightly tangenting here. And that is, if you go back to, same song. If you go back to the first verse. Next stanza. Okay. Now, so I've written the song. We're getting ready to record an album. And this was one of the songs. It was slightly different. I remember sitting in the back of a car with a friend of mine, Clive, who's been to Bible college and knew a bit about theology. And I'd never had that benefit. And so I fairly sort of confidently showed him this lyric, and he started to read it through. And then about this point, his approving nodding turned to a what's wrong with my song, and what it was, that second line, dwells in humanity, I had put clothed with humanity. So what's wrong with that, Clive? I thought, that's great. Clothed with, this is incarnation, clothed with humanity. He said, okay, so first of all, you put clothes on and you take them off. Did he put on humanity and take it off again? No, he kept it on. He said, and what's more, Graham, there was a very popular heresy in the history of the church, which believed that's exactly what happened, that God became man in Christ and then stopped being man and went back to being God again. And do you really want to promote that heresy into a new century? If anyone ever sings this song, I thought, thank you, brother. Hallelujah. I will, and I, fortunately, we hadn't started recording the vocals yet, so we'd almost committed to a whole choir singing all these words, and then you start spending money, and you think you've got to redo that. That's another day in the studio or something. Anyway, I suppose for many songs, that kind of preciseness is not totally relevant, but now and again, it really is relevant. So it just helps to have buddies who know a bit about theology, that you can run it by them, and create something which, because if I'd have had that fault in there, and if I maybe ended the song without that completion of the journey of lifting him lifting our hands back to the heights of his throne, I think the song would have been forgotten by now, because, flaws, a new song, people don't see the flaws quite so easily, but after a while, they start to show through, and people think, do you know something about that song? I don't feel so comfortable using it, or so-and-so said that, clothed in humanity, ooh. Anyway, so back to the notes, and we got to story. Tools to trigger the imagination. Metaphor, describing something as something else. A collision between ideas that don't belong together, says Paddison. A couple of simple examples. You ain't nothing but a hound dog is a good one. I haven't come to that yet, so do that in a moment. Stress emphasis, using strong and weak positions in the meter. I'll try and demonstrate that from when I survey in a moment. Repetition, alliteration, rhetoric. Repetition is incredibly important in songs, but you can't have too little and you can't have too much. Too little repetition you don't remember. Too much repetition, it gets irritating. So you need a bit of variation. Rhetoric is a form of speech where you're asking questions. And did our Lord say that, or did he say this, or do you think this, or what do you make of that? It's asking questions, and what happens when we ask a question? People try and think of the answer. One of the songs in my very early folky singer-songwriter days, and works to this day actually, and that was a long time ago, is almost entirely questions. It's not a worship song, it's a song I'd sing in colleges or schools or whatever. Is a rich man worth more than a poor man? A stranger worth less than a friend? Is a baby worth more than an old man? Your beginning worth more than your end? Everybody's thinking, oh, that's interesting. Is a president worth more than his assassin? Does your value decrease with your crime? Like when Christ took the place of Barabbas, would you say he was wasting his time? And the chorus, well, how much do you think you are worth? Would anyone stand up and say? Would you say that a man is worth nothing until someone is willing to pay? And it just went on and on. Ask question, question, question. And you can sing the song and everyone's going, yeah, they're engaged. If I'd have just put out bland statements of my conclusions, then it would be quite tedious. But the fact I'm using a rhetoric, asking questions, keeps people engaged. And then when I finally come in with the, to the kill at the end, which is, if you heard that your life had been valued, that a price had been paid on the nail, would you ask what was traded, how much, and who paid it? Who was he and what was his name? If you heard that his name was called Jesus, would you say that the price was too dear? Held to the cross not by nails, but by love. It was you that broke his heart, not the spear. A statement, right? And now back to questions. Would you say you are worth what it cost him? You say no, but the price stays the same. If it don't make you cry, laugh it off, pass it by. But remember the day when you throw it away, that he paid what he thought you were worth. It's like a sermon, isn't it? And then you turn the last chorus was a kind of a B chorus, chorus 2. How much do you think he is worth? Will anyone stand up and say? And what are you willing to give him in return for the price that he paid? Questions, 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 questions. So rhetoric is a great device in, and then there's contrast, taking one thing and contrasting it with another, high and low, deep and wide, short and tall, things that contrast. So, with those in mind, just move us on to the how is he doing it? Can you recognize any of those tools in there? Head, hands, feet, they're nouns. You can think of his head, you can think of his hands, you can think of his feet. It takes you right there. And then you've got a metaphor, sorrow and love flow mingled down. What actually is flowing mingled down is probably blood and sweat, blood and water, isn't it? But he says it's sorrow and love flow mingled down. So suddenly, that physicality of blood and sweat has become sorrow and love. That's a metaphor. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet? Now, there's a bit of repetition there. It's such a powerful thing. He's using it again, but what he's done, he's switched it round. Instead of sorrow and love, it's love and sorrow. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns, and he adds something else, and thorns compose so rich a crown. Woo! It's amazing. It's deceptively. It looks simple, but actually, it's very skilled. Metaphors. A metaphor is a collision between ideas that don't belong together. And from the blunt, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, to the sublime, sorrow and love flow mingled down. They're all metaphors. And because they're words that don't normally fit together, or concepts don't normally fit together, they arrest your attention. Okay? This is the time to be an attention seeker. not as a performer in your lyrics. Let your lyrics be attention seekers. So back to the first verse of When I Survey. When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt all my pride. Well, that's very much a scene setter. And it takes you right to the issues, doesn't it? And actually, if you were to look at all the stanzas together, which I haven't got in front of you, but you would see that in the very last verse, he's picking up the theme he started with, because what's the last verse of When I Survey? Were the whole realm of nature mine. I started in a Chris Tomlin case. Again, were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. My richest gain I count but loss. He's going back to where he started, but in a different form. Now you could go on and on with this particular song, and I've benefited from reading, people who are far better than me at critiquing poetry and lyrics. But it's a model lyric to study. I will say something else about it, and that is, if we, key that about me and maybe C. Shall we sing that first verse together to that? When I survey the wondrous cross. You know that tune? Some of you know it. Hymns are dying away. Here we go. When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. Now Now, I want to ask you to do a rather strange thing, and that is just to sing the syllables to the same tune, okay? So it's A. Yeah? Can you do that? I want you to just sing the vowels. Did I say syllables? Just the vowel sounds, the E and the oo and the E and the oo and E's and oo's. And yeah? So where are we? I think we're still there. Have we changed? Okay, that's far enough. What did you, apart from being rather strange, did you notice anything about that? The mouth didn't change very much, yeah. It's very smooth, isn't it? And every note just allows you to actually sing an open vowel sound. And what is the effect? It's very calming, isn't it? And very soothing. And I heard, again, a study by Marva Dawn, who lectures over in America somewhere, English lady, studying and doing an analysis of this lyric with that tune, and just showing how incredibly well they fit together, the melody and the words, in an unusual way. And it has an effect on you, doesn't it? Or didn't it? I don't know. It's not just the words, it's the tune and the words together and how they fit together creates a whole effect. You know? You could say, oh, it's a very anointed song. Absolutely. But the Holy Spirit, I believe, would have helped Isaac Watts, or I don't know whether there's any collaboration with tunes, but certainly in the way that he wrote it, it had that smoothness, even without a tune, that just calms you down. And it's a meditative, thoughtful mood, isn't it? So, and then just to make sure we get the next verse up, the whole picture. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. Let's think about where he's put the different words. So let's sing this through. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice to his blood. Is there anything about where the words are placed in context of the tune that you notice? Do shout it out if you think you see. No, there's the T's and D's. Yeah. What does she call those? She called those dentals. There's gutturals and dentals. Did you hear the same talk? Yeah. There's gutturals and there's dentals. Save in the death of Christ, my God. You know, there's something about that brings a I don't know the word for it. It's dental, isn't it? No. And the G is a bit guttural. You know, so it's doing different things. And they seem to be placed in the right place. Yeah, yeah, good. Anything else?
Sacrifice lowers. So during singing the word sacrifice, you are lowering melody.
I sacrifice. Yeah, absolutely. You feel sacrifice, you're bowing down. The melody's going down. I sacrifice them to his blood. boy, it just helps you to bring out the meaning and the emotion, doesn't it, simultaneously.
Similarly, the main things that charm me most is quite light and kind of pretty music as opposed to the more dramatic.
Yes, it's like throwaway, isn't it?
Really, and
All the vain things that charm me most, are useless things, I'm just throwing them away. Charm me most, I sacrifice them to his blood, you know. Oh, good. I hope you're getting turned on to this, to Isaac Watts as a champion lyricist. But even forbid it, Lord. That fits too there, doesn't it? If he'd put forbid that I, it's wrong, isn't it? Because the I is getting too much emphasis. So this is about strong and weak places in the meter. So that Lord is a strong place, and the I is a lighter place. Forbid it, Lord, weighty word, that I should boast, you know, Lord, I, all those kind of things. Well, I'm just trying to turn you on to sort of tools of critiquing and analyzing songs. And my advice is get there first, all right? If you're the writer, you get there first and sort them out. Okay. Let's move on quickly. Okay, now let's go on to some downgrading. We're going to downgrade a lyric here, okay? So here's a lyric, and we don't have a tune quite yet. You're the greatest of all. There's nothing. It's about the greatness of God, okay? You're the greatest of all. There's nothing you cannot do. There's no one like you. We give you praise. Yeah. That's okay. An okay lyric, isn't it? Yeah. Bit of casual shrugging going on out there. So, what if instead of you're the greatest of all, there's nothing you cannot do, there's no one like you, we give you praise. What if it was like this? Water, you turned into wine. Open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. So it's all about the greatness of God. But why is that successful compared to, why is B better than A? Okay? Water, a noun. Water you turn into wine. I'm thinking water, I'm thinking wine. Open the eyes of the blind. I'm seeing Jesus open blind eyes. There's no one like you. So that's immediately revelation response, which is the other sort of internal dynamic of songs. So you did this, there's no one like you. That's my response. Yeah? And then he actually repeats the response to strengthen it. None like you. If it had done, there's no one like you, we give you praise. It's like, yeah. But there's no one like you, none like you. It enables you to emphasize it even more. Okay? So let's try the next verse, next stanza. You are the light of the world. You came to seek and to save. There's no one like you. Name above all. Okay? Pretty standard worship song lyric. Maybe we sing it together. I'll put it back where it was. There you go. You are the, we've got a tune now. You are the light of the world. Seek and to save. There's no one like you. Name above all. I've no evidence that this was the original version, by the way. But so let's just compare them, how it came out. You are the light of the world is a kind of pretty standard thing. But what if into the darkness you shine? That's a little bit fresh, isn't it? Into the darkness you shine. Out of the ashes we rise. You've got a movement there. You've got shining into the darkness, and then we're coming out of the ashes. There's action. Into, there's verbs. Out of, rise, shine. Loads of verbs. There's no one like you, none like you. Again, we get that emphasis. Now, a lot of this, let's face it, a lot of this we just do intuitively. You know? And there are some annoying people out there who can just write an amazing lyric, and they haven't the faintest idea what they've been doing, but somehow it works, you know. And some poetry professor could say, "Oh, this is amazing methodology here," you know. And they think, "Well, it just felt right." You know, it's great when that happens. And most of us start off like that. We're amazed to get anything out, you know. But then after a while, you know, unless we are some incredible gifted person, some genius who always does it right, most of us then start, you know, turning out some very average stuff, and we need to know how to make it better. How could this line be stronger? And I heard Matt Redman saying, I don't know if it was original to him, but he said, find the weakest part of the song and make it better. You know? And a lot of this is the process that seasoned writers do. They don't just accept the first thing that comes out. They say, how can I make that better? How can I make that stronger? So, you know, one of the things Paul Bolosh in his book God Songs says, with Jimmy and Carol Owens as well, called God Songs: write, analyze, rewrite. Write something, analyze what you've written, rewrite it. You know? Let's keep going. So now the chorus, I don't want to bore you with this, but our God is greater, our God is stronger, our God is higher than any other, our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Well, let's compare those for the next slide. Variation, repetition and variation. You know, too much repetition gets tedious, boring, but our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are. So he's turned it around to a direct statement to God. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are high. We're now speaking to God. It's shifted where the conversation is going. Our God is healer, awesome in power, our God, our God. And quickly, just the next slide, because here's a bridge not far enough. This is my downgrading of this wonderful song. Because our God is for us, no one can ever stop us. Because our God is with us, nothing can stand against, compared to the original. And we're back to rhetoric questions. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is for us, then what could stand against? It's not just bland statements. It's, hey, it's drawing everybody in. Say, don't you agree? You know, this is true. And it makes a real difference it's that hidden difference. You know, what's the magic of this lyric? It's there. It's in the mechanics of the words and so on. Okay, so here's a thought about a sort of little test you could make, a swap test, a media swap test. So what if your lyric was a performance poem? Have a little bit of fun. Take your lyric and shut yourself in a soundproof room so you don't look too much an idiot. Well, you know, maybe you do this with friends. Maybe you're an extrovert. And you read out your lyric as if it's a performance poem. And you see how it sounds. Just bare words. Forget the tune, because we musicians, if we're tune writers as well, we're so into our lovely tunes, you know, we're just feeding the tune. And it's like the words have just now become familiar and we're never going to change them because we love the tune. But if you just strip away the words from the melody, how does it trip off the tongue? Does it have weight? Is it, you know, could it be better? And so on. You could similarly think of it as a short story. Okay? Now, a story is there a beginning, middle, end, tension release, conflict resolution, revelation, response? So read it as if it was a short story with those things in mind. Okay? I'll keep going because these are fairly obvious things. It just takes time to get your head around doing them. A movie. What if it was a movie? This is interesting because, you know, what visual images are being successfully conveyed or could be put in there? Is it just a bunch of fairly bare statements? What am I seeing in my imagination? What about a conversation? This actually helps because sometimes we get mixed up with who's speaking. What's the voice of this song? You know, are we singing to God now? Are we singing to each other? You know, some Christian song lyrics, you get so far and you think, now I'm confused whether God's speaking to me or I'm speaking to God or we're speaking to each other. You know, and sometimes if you turn it into a conversation, then it unlocks that. And the good thing about a conversation is you've got question, answer, response. How much more could you build in a conversational style into this? Okay, so vocal warm-up, we just did that, just singing the vowels. And it's quite fun to do. Just sing the vowels and see if there's any clunky things in there. You know? You should always try and put open vowels at the end of a line. Yeah? Because it sings. It's great for voices. A, E, I, U. You got your choice. You know, a word that opens up and allows you to sing it and feel it. So, okay, let's hold it there a second. Flip back to where we were. There we go. Now, I might be a little bit an extreme case, but because I'm so passionate about the content of a song, if there's something that's not quite good enough, you know, if I was wearing a T-shirt, and I've seen these online actually, Enneagram T-shirts, for my personality type, it would say, "This T-shirt could be better." And so I'm always thinking this could be better. I mean, I can be irritating to live with sometimes, but anyway, I always want something to be better. So I came across a lyric, fairly recent lyric, which I wrote to an old hymn tune about 3 years ago. And I'd done a lot of work on this, and I was really happy with all but one line. And it's very tempting to say, oh, that's the best I can do. But somehow I can't let myself do that. And the result of that is I have a lot of abandoned songs, which have probably got good qualities, but I never found how to make them perfect. Not there is such a thing as a perfect song, but anyway, I came across my sort of final lyric with the one line that wasn't quite working, and then I noticed down the side of the page I'd written alternatives to that line. And I thought, oh, I wonder how many of those I did. And I counted, I think it was about 34 alternatives to that one line, any of which would have worked, and most people would have thought, oh, that's pretty good. But then I hit on the line. And that's what I ended up using. But it took me about 34 attempts, which is a very brain-bashing kind of thing. And I just have to make myself do it. Interestingly enough, I haven't got time to show you the context, but the line was it light fires of hopes plant fields of peace, right? Light fires of hope plant fields of peace. And when I look at it, I think, yeah, actually it's obvious why that was the winning line, because plant, verb, action, fields of hope. It's a metaphor. Which way around? No. Light fires of hope. Light fires of hope, plant fields of peace. So it's all about action, but it's giving you a picture. It's getting into your imagination, you know? And sometimes if you really want excellence, you just have to work for it, really. I mean, I long for some of my early days when brain was younger, and I would somehow just come up with things like it just came out of nowhere. So, oh, that was easy. That's amazing. Where did that come from? You know, but you can't. It doesn't always happen. In fact, it's fairly rare for me. But my stuff comes through working at it. All right. So, how are we doing? Is it 1:15? We finish. All right. I think good time maybe for some questions, or I'm not going to go through all the usual questions of, what about the theology and all this sort of thing, because, that's important, but we don't really have time for that. Any questions out of what I've been saying? Yes?
Do you find that these rules that you've been saying and these ideas you've had, do they work across genres? Or do they seem quite analytical and quite, there's something to do with making it sound nice and using this imagery? Does that fit more with the worship genre, but maybe less so with like, a rap song or a book song? Or
I mean, obviously the context and the style is really important, because certain things fit. A hymn style allows you to have a lot richer language. A rap artist would use more street language. So you've got to be true to the genre. But I think generally speaking, surely the same things might apply, even though they might come spontaneously to somebody. Probably, I don't know how many rap artists actually sit down and analyze how many verbs and adjectives and nouns and where does the emphasis fall, but they're doing it. If they're successful, they're doing it anyway, and maybe they don't need to know the theory. But so I think a lot of it is transferable across different genres, as long as you're true to style. Thank you.
Yeah, that's loud. So tagged onto that, that spontaneity versus the more analytical style.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you have any experience of crossing? Because it seems you're quite an analytical writer, at least now. Is that common across all of the songwriters, or would a lot of people be just more, the inspiration comes to them and they get it? Or would you, as an aspiring songwriter, would you recommend that we really invest in the analytical side?
I think most writers that I have come across would broadly take the same approach. Some people are very spontaneous. Some people wake up with dreams in the night and they've got a song. Amazing. Wish that happened to me. But I think most people find, which is where you go back to this, to writing. I think Matt Redman says, you write, you go in close in emotionally to begin, but then you step back and see what you've got, and then you go back in and just feel the emotion of it. And I'm very aware of those two dynamics. In fact, one of my battles in songwriting is, once I learned how to analyze, a lot of it, I shifted too much into the brain space and out of the heart space. And have to sort of consciously get myself back into the heart and the feeling space, and people will be different, Some people will tend towards, the more emotional stuff, and doesn't matter so much for them to be so accurate. But maybe they need to work with somebody who's more analytical. But yeah, I would say most writers, you get your inspiration, your idea, and you pour out, you pour out whatever you've got onto the page or into the recording machine. But then you have to step back and say, where's this all going? What about verse 2? Verse 2s are quite notoriously hard to write, because you've had your initial inspiration, your subject, and you've got your chorus and release. You think, okay, that's all I had. And then you have to work at getting it, in the next verse. And sometimes for me, that's like a Bible search, a Bible study, I start to realize, okay, so this subject, that was all I really knew about it or felt about it, so I need to learn something. I need to read a bit. I read a chapter of a book. Where can I go to learn enough to be able to write a verse 2, maybe verse 3, that is actually worthy of this subject, So I think that's pretty common. Next, please. Next question.
Hi, Graham. One of the things
Hello.
I'm struggling with at the moment is writing more upbeat songs.
Yes.
Is there anything you would do with lyrics that would help with more upbeat songs? Is there anything, any techniques you might add?
Oh. I have the same problem, so I'm not sure I can help you. I tend towards thoughtful, meditative stuff, and I think a lot of us do. What I would say is physically get yourself into the right place for it. Because if you're trying to write an upbeat song and you're sitting on a comfortable sofa or something, it's going to tend to, your physical pose takes you to a place, doesn't it? And in no time at all, you're going to be... So if you want to write a lively song, you better stand up. You better, even though you might be in your living room, wherever you are, write songs. In your imagination, step out in front of a really lively crowd of people and say, right, let's go to sing. Let's sing this. What could it be? I noticed Paul Bloch does this a lot. I've written with him a few times. And, if you're playing with a song and you're sitting down, he'll suddenly stand up and he'll go to an imaginary microphone and he'll start singing what we've got, and he's there in his imagination with a big crowd of worshippers and getting into the zone, that's what that might help. Obviously, if you listen to the kind of music you like to write, and sort of work out how it works, maybe, and give it a go. But you might just discover actually it's not your strength, and use somebody else's songs of that kind. They've got to be particularly instant and catchy, haven't they? Although sometimes you can go on a bit of a journey. I remember one of my newer songs. It started out. It's quite a nice surprise if you do that. I'll do this for guitar nerds because it is, in terms of trying to pass things on. One of the things I think is important for all of us is sounds, and how sounds are evocative, I remember years ago I'd written a lyric which I thought this is going to be a good hymn, and it was started with the line, "I've placed all my hope in a crucified man." And I came up with a tune and quite a good lyric. Somehow it just wasn't working, and it sat there for probably years, and I pick it out now and again and fiddle around with it. And then one day I had the lyric out and thinking, there's such a lot in this, and for some reason I started playing around with a chord configuration that I hadn't really used before. It's actually like a B minor, but it was with some open strings, just like that. So immediately you've got a few It's like a drone sound. And it's a mood, you know. And it's a minor key. So I tried singing that line to that sort of, and I started picking it as well, sort of, because this is my old sort of original finger-picking, folky style. And I discovered you could do this. And so I had, you know, and suddenly it sounded like, sounds like someone's going to sing a song any moment now. It's going to be quite it's a dark sound, isn't it? And so I started experimenting. I've placed all my hope in a crucified man, in the wounds in his side, his feet and his hands. Whoa. I've traded my pride for a share in this shame, and the glory that one day will burst from his pain. And I thought, at that point I made a decision, this is going to be a solo song that I will sing at Easter. I don't know if anyone else will ever sing it. I certainly won't sing it in church, but it's working because it's a whole mood. And you can find it on YouTube, of course. And it's one of the songs I love the most. But the key was the mood that came out of the guitar, and you know, and then you find you can do other anyway. So and you can make nice big sounds on just one acoustic guitar. And another one that you're talking about gentle songs. I was doing. I'm a bit of a capo freak, and so I love partial capos. So that's one that covers strings 1 to 5. Apologies to all the keyboard players here, or bass players. And this one just covers 3 strings, you know. And you can do all sorts of things with these. And so I did one little experiment, and I put this one on here. And see, a lot of my early writing was when I discovered alternate tuning. And a lot of it came out of the sounds of and what they suggested, you know. So I got 2 different ones. Again, this is on YouTube for this song. And then that's actually a D without even touching with my left hand, except I need to drop the E down to a D. Back to my dark sound again. What is this? Melancholy. And then I discovered, I started fiddling around with positions again. Got lots of strings playing exactly the same note at different octaves, you know. That's nice. Move it up. Move it up again. Go up the dusty end. So I fiddled around with an old hymn lyric, might even have been our friend Isaac Watts. And I came up with something like, sweet is the word, my God and King, to praise your name, give thanks and sing, to tell your love by morning, your faithfulness all through the night. It's nice, isn't it? It is. But then I kind of, I thought, I'm not sure I can sing that for 5 minutes, like that. And I began to experiment because I thought, that's nice as well. And that. So I thought, what if I speed this up? Sweet is the word, my God and King, to praise your name, give thanks and sing, to tell your love by morning light, your faithfulness all through the night. And the chorus came out as well on the very same chords. Praise him, moon and stars, praise him, shining lights, praise him in the morning, praise him when the sun goes down. And then, down to a verse. How good it is to join the song, east to the west, old and the young. That's how it goes on. Lift every voice, fill every lung, come strike the strings and beat the drums. Yeah. But it all started with me fiddling around with a very sort of gentle little sort of trying to put hymn tune to music. And after that first verse, I sort of said, yeah, I'm just going to have to go off. That was a great starting point, but sorry, Isaac. I'm not going to... I've left you now. I've left the room. Anyway, so sounds are important. Sounds are evocative. There might be different... what's your sound? I mean, what interesting thing, as we start to run out of time here, is we all have our voice. We all, have you heard the term finding your voice? Someone might say that about you as a singer or as a musician or whatever. Oh, they've really found, in the last 6 months, they've really found their voice. In other words, they're doing what they do and it's their way of doing it. They've learned the technique and now it's like a personal expression. I think the same comes in songs, that after a while you find what is really authentically you. And I mean, that last song is, it's unusual for me to write up songs. But it's an up song in a style that I relate to because it's got that kind of folky vibe. So I never did traditional folk, but the singer-songwriter acoustic guitar thing was always my thing. So that really is natural for me. Another few little tips. Alternate tunings are great. That was one. I dropped the E to a D, didn't I? And so you play a D and then you've got the D on the bottom. You're immediately into a kind of different vibe, and you just got to remember that your E string is now a D. Some of my very early songs, I experimented with tunings, and again, minor key, what is this? I discovered, try tuning to E minor. It's where you break strings. Okay, so then you discover you can play different chords just with 2 fingers, or maybe turn it to a major. But it locks you into a limitation. And actually, here's a little thing for you. Don't despise your limitations. Your limitations are the key to your originality. Hey. It's like the photographer, I borrowed this from someone else. You see photographers going around like this. They're plotting a composition, and they're making a limitation. They're saying, can I, that bit or that, no, that, oh, there it is, I got, And a limitation is exactly what Jesus did when he became a man. He limited himself, and within that limitation, he did everything God wanted him to do. So limitations are quite good. Now and again. And so one of my very early songs was a story song. So I was a student at college, and I was in the E minor tuning, capo on 5th fret, finger on 3rd string to give me a major. And I discovered you can do things like, quite soothing, and became a song about Simon Peter. Footsteps on the sea, and nets upon the sand, seabirds flying free, the sower sows his land. I was only singing songs of billowed sails and sea, mending nets on yellow sand, when my brother said to me, see who walks the shore yonder by the tree, the one who walks so tall, a preacher man is he. I was only singing songs of billowed sails and sea, mending nets on yellow sand, when he came up to me. I'll have to keep singing the whole song now. Eyes that bore the sea, 1,000 ages old, fixed their gaze on me, 1,000 tales were told. I was only singing songs of billowed sails and sea. I've got the sequence wrong here. That teaches me right, doesn't it? Should go. I was only singing songs of billowed sails and sea, mending nets on yellow sand, when he said, follow me. So, there you go. So I can't resist an opportunity to sing those really old songs. But there it is. It's very simple. Limitations, but within those limitations, I made a song. And so celebrate your limitations. There's nothing more original than you, you know, and you have something unique to give. Don't sit there thinking, oh, I never can write one of these big songs. Maybe you won't, but, you know, whatever God's called you to be, if you're obedient, that's what you'll be. Might be something completely different. So don't wish you were somebody else. Give thanks for who you are and what you've got, and find God within that. And within those limitations, you will see the power of God working in that unique way. Bless you. Thank you.